We'll be starting with some Parita chanting, some protective chants as a welcoming gift from all the monastics at Abhayagiri. And then after that, we'll ask Lumpur to say a few words, and then I'll say a few words as well. So I know people have to be getting back, so without further ado, we'll maybe ask Tan Sudhiro to call the devas.
Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Buddhang Saranang Gacchami Dhammang Saranang Gacchami Sanghang Saranang Gacchami Dutiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami Dutiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami Dutiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami Tatiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami Tatiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami Tatiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami Tipiso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vijajarana Sammano Sugato Lokavidu Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sarati Satta Deva Manusanang Buddho Bhagavati Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Eipasiko Opanaiko Pachatang Veditabo Vinyu Iti Supatipanno Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Ujupatipanno Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Nyaya Patipanno Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Samiji Patipanno Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Yaridam Chatari Purisayuka Eyata Purisa Pukala Esa Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Ahuneyo Bahuneyo Dakineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anutara Punya เสวนาจะปาลานังพันติทานังจะเสวนาปูจาจะปูจนิยานังเอตัมมังกลมุตตมังปฏิรูปเทสวาโสจะภูเบจะกตปุญญาตาตัสสัมมาปณิดิจาเอตัมมังกลมุตตมังบาหุสาจังจะสิปัญจเวนโยจะสุสิกิโตสุปาสิตาจะยาวาจาเอตัมมังกลมุตตมังมาตาปิตุอุปาทานังพุทธดาราสสังฆโหอนาคุลาจะกัมมันตาเอตัมมังกลมุตตมังดานันจะรัมมจริยาจัญญาตกานันจะสังฆโหอนวาจานิกรรมานิเอตัมมังกลมุตตมังอารติวิรติปาปัมมาจปานะจะสัญญโมอาปมาโดจะธัมเมสุเอตัมมังกลมุตตมังการวจะนิวัตโตจะสันตุติจะกตัญยุตาคาเลนะธัมมัสสวนังเอตัมมังกลมุตตมังกันเตนะโสวจาสตะสมนานันจตาสนังกาเลนะธัมมัสสะกาจาเอตัมมังกลมุตตมังพระพุทธพระจริยัญจาริยสัจจานดาสนังนิบานัสสะจะกิริยาจะเอตัมมังกลมุตตมังพุทธัสสะโลกดัมเมหิจิตังยาสกัมปติยโสกังวิรจังเขมังเอตัมมังกลมุตตมังเอตาดิสานิกาตวานัสสะบัตตมปราจิตาสับัตตโสติงกัจจันติทันเตสังมังกลมุตตมังติการณิยมาตกุสเลยันตังสันตังปดังอภิสัมเมจะสาโกอุจุจะสุอุจุจะสุวจโจจะสมุดุวนาติมานิสันตุสโกจะสุบาโรจะอาปะกิโจจะสาลาหุกวุติสันตินทริโยจะนิปโกจะอาปะกาโปคุเลสุวานานุกิโดจะกุดังสมาจเรกิชิเยนะวิญโยปะเรอุปวะเดโยสุขิโนวะเขมิโนตุสาเวสัตตาภวันตุสุขิตาตาเยเกจิปานะพุทธาติตัสสาวะตาวราวะอนาวเสสาติกาวะเยมหันตาวะมัจจิมาราสกะอนุกตุลาดิตาวะเยจะอดิตาเยจะดุเรวสันติอภิดุเรบุตาวะสัมภเวสีวะสาเวสัตตาภวันตุสุขิตาตานะปโรปรังมิกุเปตนาติมันเยตกาตจินังกินชิปยาโรสนาปฏิกสัญญานัญญมัญญาสดุกมิเจยมาตายตานิยังพุทธอายุสาเอกพุทธมนุราเกเอวัมปิสาบะพุทเตสุมาณสัมภาวะเยอปริมาณังเมตัญชะสาบะโลกัสมิมาณสัมภาวะเยอปริมาณังบุตังอโดจติริยัญชะสัมปาดังอเวรังอสปาตังติตัญจรังนิสินโนวะ sayano va yavata savigatamido etam sating aditeya brahma metram vihara idama udikin cha anupagam asilava dasanena sampano kame suvenaya kedan nahi jatu kapaseya
The first chant we did was the Itipiso Bhagawa Arahang. That's the homage to Buddha Dhamma Sangha that we do often. The second chant is the Asevana Chabalanang. That's the highest blessings. It's 38 verses, and each set of 3 verses ends with Etamang Galamutamang, meaning these are the highest blessings. And it's a list of 38 things which are the highest blessings. You can look it up in English at some point. And the Metta chant, the Karaniya Metta Sutta, as we chanted when you were all riding out this morning from the Keoye campground. That was the third chant about should be done by those who are skilled in goodness. And we also do that chant in English. And so at this point I was going to ask Lumpur to say a few words to all of you, and then I'll say a few words perhaps after that if there's anything to add, and then we'll end with the verses of sharing and aspiration, which are in our chanting books. And at that point, anybody will, if you'd like to follow along, you'd be welcome to grab a chanting book, and we'll do those. So please, Lumpur.
Okay, welcome everybody. Good to see there's quite a few people I recognize, and many people I don't recognize. So it's lovely to see this bicycle pilgrimage happening again. Last couple of years have been tough on everybody, so that it's a good sign. Just say, okay, things are somewhat getting back to normal. Whatever normal is. It's although what did come to mind one time of the thinking about okay, things are coming to the end. But I thought of Winston Churchill during I think it was like 1942, in the midst of the Second World War, and him giving a speech to the British public and saying, this is not the end. This is not even the beginning of the end. It might be the end of the beginning. So we tend to measure things into, okay, something's happening, something's not happening, oh dear. Or something's happening, oh dear. And something's not happening, oh wonderful. But we go up and down all the time. So, and I think particularly on riding on a bike and navigating hills and roads and whatnot, there's a whole range of perceptions and feelings that come up. So this is a part of the kind of practice and training, is learning how to. It's not just say pedaling a bike, or not just say meditating. It's navigating our emotions, our reactions, and that's the function of, say, Buddhist practice, and in terms of the say a Buddhist bicycle pilgrimage, and to be integrating the principles and ideas of Buddhism and how to put them into practice, because that's it's like a monastery is not really It's not like a meditation center. It's a place where we live, kind of live and breathe, living, practice, and it's really important to recognize that these teachings and tools that the Buddha has given are for us to implement in our daily lives. And I think it was Jen Yaniko told me that they say the theme of this particular pilgrimage this weekend was metta, loving kindness, and that's absolutely a theme to be integrating into daily life and bringing into our. It's like this is say a successful endeavor because people are willing to approach it as a communal effort, everybody helping each other out. I think that's one of the important aspects of this particular pilgrimage or this particular bike ride is that everybody helps out. It's all done on generosity and it's accomplished through everybody helping out. It's an act of kindness, of loving kindness, recognizing that one, especially in this case, you have a common purpose, common goal. But as human beings, we actually all have common purposes and common goals. We want to live. We want to be happy. We want to be safe. So that just recognizing that, and how do we live in a way that accomplishes that? And certainly an active recollection of the value of loving kindness is really important, and because it is a universal quality, and one of the images that the Buddha gives for the benefit of loving kindness, it's in the Buddha in the same way that a clear pond, that's a spring that is clear, fresh, clear water, and anybody who comes to it will be refreshed by the cool water, be refreshed by their thirst will be abated. It's just it's refreshing. So that it's refreshing to look at oneself and look at others with the eyes of loving kindness. And there's lots to get irritated in this world, but it's sort of like, do I really want to go there? Do I need to go there? I've got an option. Loving kindness is an option, and so it takes effort in the same way that it takes effort to get on your bike and ride all the way from Spirit Rock to Abhayagiri, so that you're familiar with making effort. And this learning how to looking after the heart in the same way that one looks after one's other skills in life. So that's a bit of a reflection. Pass it on to Ajahn Yaniko, and then again just express my delight in seeing you all here. Great.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have so much to add, but somehow I've been looking at this book that we're going to be handing out as a gift with these blessing cords, and it says "breathing like a Buddha" on it, and somehow that seems like a really good reflection. Breathing like a Buddha, because when you're undergoing the bike pilgrimage, riding the bike, we breathe. We have to breathe. And I overheard at least one person talking about breathing techniques over the past day. So it is a good reflection. How do we breathe like a Buddha? I don't know yet because I haven't read the book yet. So you can tell me about it. I have it in my kuti. I've been meaning to read it. So hope to read it sometime soon, hopefully, and learn myself how to breathe like a Buddha. But breathing is very important, and so we can use that for metta practice as well, goodwill, breathing in, like that theme of refreshment is very helpful. I find that the Buddha talks about piti and sukha, like joy and happiness, or we could say rapture and happiness, or rapture and contentment. Piti being more of something more coarse, still good, that sense of excitement in the heart, perhaps when you're starting out on the pilgrimage. And I felt it a little bit from the group this morning at the KOA, everybody heading out after we did that chant, and there was that sense of good group energy and kind of a sense of maybe excitement and looking forward to the day. And so that's like piti, and then sukha is like deep inner contentment. And they talk about when you're the Buddha uses these analogies of being in the desert, and we're very thirsty and parched and not comfortable, and then we see an oasis, and somebody comes and says, well, there's an oasis right over there. It's really, it's super great. There's cool water for bathing and drinking, and it's right over there. And you get this kind of sense of excitement, like you're going to arrive. And that's like piti, and then sukha is when you sort of jump in the cool water and actually partake of it and actually drink your fill, and you get utterly refreshed by that. And then that's also in the suttas, that's a precursor to samadhi. The happy mind is easily concentrated. So there is that sense of refreshment, or that sense of arriving, and also coming back to that theme of the symbology of riding from a retreat center to a monastery, that idea of the intentionality of stepping up your spiritual practice and integrating it more into your daily life, which is just what Longpa was saying, exactly what we're doing here. We all the monastics live here full time. This is our lives, and those who take on the novice training or higher, we've given up our assets and our bank accounts, and we're just supported by the lay communities around us. And so we live and breathe the practice. It doesn't mean we mess up or don't do everything perfectly. Sometimes we're not ideal beings, so there is these really high ideals. And as monks, we do have really perhaps high ideals, but then there's the ideals, and then there's the reality, or the human mind, and especially the human body is not ideal, but the mind isn't an ideal either. It's kind of crazy, actually, so we have to learn how to deal with it. Somehow the theme of climbing hills was also coming up for me today, because you have to go into the KOA campground. Yesterday, you've got that big hill right at the end after riding 85 miles. Then you end with a hill, and then you come to Abhayagiri, and you end with probably one of the steepest driveways in the county. And they're both at the very end. So I was reminded of this story of when Ajahn Sumedho, the most senior Western student of Ajahn Chah, and when he was a novice, he was living in the northeast of Thailand in a province called Nong Khai, and he was living up in his kuti. This is before he lived with Longpo Cha. This is before he lived with Ajahn Chah. He was up practicing on his own. I think he was 34 years old or something, and he had to walk up this hill. He had to walk up this hill to get back to his kuti every day, and I think there was even a famine at that time. It was 1966, and the Vietnam War there was a lot of things were scarce in that region, so he wasn't eating very much very thin at the time, and walking up this hill, and then they also didn't speak English there, but then there was a sign in English. There was a sign in English on the trail, and the sign in English said, "Do good, like climb this hill." And I think that's great. Even the way it's said is kind of perfect. It was written, of course, by somebody who probably didn't speak English. Do good, like climb this hill. In that it's actually, we have to go against a lot of resistance to really change bad habits that we might have that are harming us and others that we want to change. We have to make that intention to change. And it's like climbing a hill. Or we want to practice metta, have goodwill for ourselves and others. It's like climbing a hill. Anytime we want to break out of some sort of negative pattern that we're in, or maybe a negative way of thinking where we're not able to have that positivity as much as we would like, so we have to climb that hill. So it's very, very important, and good to keep climbing those hills, not to shy away from it. There was also, I was asking about the clip-in. When I rode bikes back before I was a monk, I was really into mountain biking, and I never knew about these clip-in shoe things that most of you have. And I was asking, well, what if you fall over? Like, how do you get them out? Like, or do you just fall over and you're stuck on the pedals? And Dennis was showing me, you kind of swivel out. But then he was saying, but if you don't swivel out, you are kind of stuck there. And so if you're on a hill and you aren't able to push through, and you just kind of stop and fall over, and then you're just helplessly waving your arms and legs. And so we don't want that to happen. So we actually have to keep putting that effort into climbing the hills until we get to the top. So I think that's probably enough of a reflection. And before we do our closing chant, I thought we could hand out these gifts for everybody. And this is a new book. So is Aditya here? Yeah. You're outside. There's a whole bunch of extra. You gave me a lot of blessing cord. We only used one roll for this. Do you want the rest back? Okay. So he brought this special blessing cord. It looks like it's from India. And for each person who comes up, maybe find a friend to tie it onto your wrist. And then after you tie it onto your wrist, we've got 3 pairs of scissors, and you can trim off the little extra there. So maybe one by one, if people could just come up to Lumpur and myself, and we'll hand these gifts out.
Yes, it's actually a good expression of loving kindness, is helping each other out. There you go. So good to see you. How are you doing, Andrew? Yeah. There you go.
Closing chant might be a good time for us to
before the closing chant? Okay.
Because we can end them.
Sounds good. Maybe those who are outside could also, whenever you feel, you could dart in and get one.
Thank you.
There you go. Yes, that's over 20 years ago now.
I think it was 49 altogether. It's 40 riders and then 9 volunteers or something like that.
There you go.
Enjoy.
Oh. Yeah, that happens.
We're going to cut our stories.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Right. The scissors. There's 2 more pairs of scissors if anybody wants.
What is that going for?
That's where we got the strings from. We got given way too much.
And
So.
where should I do the...
Whatever you want. You could keep it in a little reliquary. You could toss it. You could.
I could do it. Thank you very much.
Do you want to keep that? It's great, isn't it? Yeah, it was the idea of one of the Indian writers, the young guy. These scissors are probably the best, these little ones, for trimming that cord. Anybody who might have a friend who helped out behind the scenes who isn't here, feel free to take a book and a cord for them as well.
Left-handed, those are probably right-handed scissors.
All right. So for Scott and Peter, would you like a wireless microphone?
Yeah, I guess for the people outside.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's still coming from your mic. I guess we want to know.
We don't have another. Okay.
I thought it was in there. Yeah, I just saw it. Yes.
So I personally feel tenderized. I feel very grateful, and just to come to this refuge, to come to your monastery is very inspiring. So on a bike ride of my own about a year ago, I was trying to let a theme arise. And so on my ride, the Brahma Viharas started to come to me, and I started chanting metta, karuna, mudita, nupekkha. And you know, it has been quite a couple of years, and life is challenging enough. But you know, we call it the Buddhist Bicycle miracle, that it happens, that we all support each other. But I would like to call it really the Buddhist Bicycle metta, that we have enough goodwill and energy to all give of what we have to make this happen. And the fact that we're all in the room together and we've pulled this off is quite astounding. And I want to suggest the pilgrimage is over. It started. I don't think it really ends, and I really want to encourage you that as you reintegrate and you're on the bus ride home and your friends ask you that you're really mindful of, even though it's been a weekend, you're different, your consciousness, your sensitivity is vulnerable, and just be mindful of how you re-enter and take that inspiration to continue your practice and to find like-minded friends. And one vision I have is that in your local Dharma communities, that once a month, once a week, you ride together and you meditate before and chant and continue the practice. We'll meet again in a year, but we could be doing this all the time. And that's available to us. The practice doesn't end. But it is ending formally, and I think we're actually on time, which is quite astounding. I want to be brief because I really it's so sweet to stay in this space. But we will send a feedback email with want to know your experience and how we can improve it, what went well and what could be improved. We will share a place for you to share your photos. There's a lot of food outside that we're encouraging you to take. One year I think we'll do dinner. We do need some savory food, but we have a lot of food there and it's a long bus ride home, so please take food. Your gear is going to go on the gear truck. There's not room for it on the bus, but if you want a handbag or a backpack, that's fine. And I'll say a little bit about Donna, and then Peter's going to talk to us about our board. So, for thousands of years, these teachings have been supported by our free will, by giving what we can, whether it's time or energy or money. And some people have donated, and there's ways on our website and other ways to give. And we encourage you, in whichever way you're moved and feels appropriate to do so. Before I hand it to Peter, Flora, one of our board members, came up with a very loving, warm idea. Did you want to say something? That we are a board of 10, I believe. Yes. And Peter is a shining sun, and is really been holding the space and guiding us, and we really honor and thank you, and are so gracious to you.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
It's beautiful. Thank you very much. Ah, yes. My first a cappella piece that I'd like to sing for you tonight. This is no small effort. It's no small distance. It's no small commitment. And a number of you have commented at your self-surprise that you've made it. Some of you were contemplating not riding today because yesterday was pretty tough, and decided this morning to at least give it a try. And now you've arrived. And we've done that in this larger context that frames that as a small thing, that there's this larger Buddhist theme that we've been working on, and the kind of improvement in our personal worlds that the theme of metta can bring. So that's no small thing either. My experience at every single one of these weekends is that it feels like a really long time. It was a long weekend. And so you're right, it's just been 2 days, but it feels much fuller than that. So, thank you for participating. The board consists of about 10 members, the board of directors of Dharma Wheels Foundation, and we need new people every year. That gives people time to get acclimated to how the board works, to contribute in some way, big or small, and then to move on through to your next things, whether you continue participating like Eileen and Bill Weber are coming back, and Dennis coming back year after year, and many others that are here today, Brian Cruz too. And so we invite new people to join the board, and if you have an inkling of interest, we want to hear from you. Not everyone from the board was able to attend. We have Lena Vinding, who lives in this area. She directs all of our finances. She takes in the money that you've donated, and we have our operating budget, and we cover our costs thanks to her. And then Vlado Bradbury is a fairly new member, and he's just got brilliant ideas, and he contributes quite a bit. And he came down with an ear infection just before this event, the day before. So he couldn't make it. Was there anyone else on the board that isn't here? I think everyone else is. So Flora Chen and Aditya Sharma is outside here. Pete Gang, who has been here year after year. If you've been here before, he's probably done the gear truck for you. Abhishek is over here and joined. He's one of our, we have 3 tech gurus now that are, we're determined to have a world-class website by next year. And Stephen Altman is outside, and I know that 95% of you know Stephen Altman. If not Stephen, you know Tiggy. And I think, Andrew, excuse me. And everybody knows Andrew. Certainly the volunteers know Andrew. And who has been on the board longer than me, quite a while, pretty close. And but has basically been on every single ride that I've been on, every single weekend that I've been on. And one of our, I feel like we're all key contributors, but some people are more key than others. And Andrew, you've stepped up, and thanks so much for organizing the volunteers again this year. Thank you all.
And the last thing is just all the volunteers, the kitchen staff and the SAG team, and the rest up, and everyone who stepped up to help in all those small little ways, and just fun. And yes, the route marking, and I want to acknowledge Autumn. You on my first pilgrimage to Lokapara, you were my route ride coordinator, so I had an example.
Thank you, Scott and Peter. We can end with if anybody wants to follow along, is the chant on page 33 of the dark brown book that's found, the chanting books in the back, the verses of sharing and aspiration. Yeah.
Verses of sharing and aspiration.
Yeah, page 33, yeah. Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled. Now we'll do a formal closing, and anybody who would like to follow along with that, and the bowing and chanting at the end is welcome to.